So, reflecting as I am on our most recent discussion, Sarah, about leadership development and wider development in a women's perspective. And again, I'm asking myself, does that mean no men? I'd like to get into some of the detail of how you go about working with women's leadership development.
Okay, that's a big question to start with. Let me take the piece of, is it exclusively women?
Okay.
Sometimes, yes.
Mm-hmm.
So what do I mean? Allyship and sponsorship, mentorship, I think are really important.
Right.
Regardless of what kind of leader you are.
Okay.
I think that's really, really important for all of us, whether we're the most senior, the most junior, whether we're career changing, whether we're life changing, life stage changing. I think that's really important for everybody to have a network of support.
Right.
And to do that, we need men.
Well, hey, we have some use.
Show up and do that for us in the same way as they need us to show up and do that for them, right?
Okay. Right. Yeah.
So I think that there's that piece. That we need to strike that balance of supporting without necessarily understanding everything about what's going on for the individual.
Okay.
And again, I would say that is true, regardless of the gender, regardless of the person. I think it's even more important when we're not the same.
All right, then that again, you know where you are, so I'm only coming in because I'll forget what I'm thinking otherwise, so I'm being partly rude here. You see, one of the things I'm thinking about is, yes, we're talking about women and men issues here. And yeah, I get that men don't fully understand how women are and vice versa. Equally, we could be talking about personality. I do quite a bit of work around introspection. I'm a totally out of control extrovert. And I think there's a lot more value in introverts than extroverts as a generalization. So there's lots of ways in which we could distinguish people by personality, by gender, by age, by all manner of things. Is working with women different and more significant than any of those things, or the same as? Where do you place it at all?
Is it more significant? To who and in what way? I guess it's my question back, Andrew. Is it significant for employers? Yeah, if you want to close the gender pay gap before our teenagers in senior leadership roles, that's what we're saying. We're still a way of making this happen.
Okay.
If we want to have representation, like the Fawcett Society says, in our political systems, whether that's your local community action group right through to sitting in the House of Parliament, the House of Lords, is it about having more voices heard? So the solution, the services, the products that we make work for more people in more holistic, more inclusive ways. All of that is about voice and finding space for us. And I think that's true of every single person. And some of us find that more challenging because of the way the world has worked to date. And for some of the lack of, I don't understand it, therefore it's scary, or I don't understand it, I don't know how to educate myself, I don't understand it, so it's probably better I just back away and like pretend it's not here.
Let me go into something specific though. I mean, again, you've raised just a word that's caused me to go into a place I didn't think I'd go. Age. You're experienced in this. Are you seeing a difference in the expectations young people new to the workplace are having that is different to people twice their age? I wonder if the teenagers that, as you say, mature as they will in the workplace will have an impact on that workplace, will be challenging things in a different way. What is it that young women are going to be doing in the workplace and the challenges that they'll be giving people that's different to women in the past? I don't know.
That's a really big one, and I don't know that anything I'm doing is going to make this happen. But I would love for them to, for young women or people identifying as more feminine to look at the world and go, what I have to offer is unique and special and valued and needed.
Wow.
I'd love that for all people.
Yeah, sure.
Whether you're at the bigger number end of things or the smaller number end of things, Angie, I'd love that for everybody.
Bigger number.
But I'd love for you to feel like that in the world.
I guess what I'm nearly saying, but not quite, is, are young women more challenging, more assertive, more clear about themselves, more prepared to stand up for themselves than maybe the women of that age 40 years ago that I first encountered?
Yes and no. This isn't going to be there isn't a straight
Oh.
answer. There isn't a perfect answer to this, Andrew. Why do I say that? Because some girls are already coming through the education system having already still got that message. Oh,
Yeah.
you like French? Well, become a French teacher.
Okay.
Not become an international translator in big business,
Yeah.
or
Sure.
an EU or a UN, or take it and work in a disaster zone and massively making a difference on people's lives.
Okay.
We still can be quite limited, and also, you know,
Yeah.
we see
Yeah.
what our parents do, and we see what
Yeah.
our grandparents and our aunts and uncles do.
Yeah.
We go, oh, so there.
Sure.
Yes, I think there is a greater acceptance of diversity in younger people,
Right.
more so than if I think about my teenage years,
Okay.
maybe more so than your teenage
Oh,
years.
much more. Much
I
more.
still think there are bigger systems in place that still create natural blockers. And because you know what? It's older people. I'm going to be careful how I say this. Older people that tend to be at the top of businesses, big established businesses. Age still is a bit of a factor in terms of leadership. If you're in the startup space,
Yeah.
you may have a much younger, board, pseudo board, but you're a much smaller organization, so the roles are very. There isn't really a perfect. I would love to say that, yeah, we will fix the gender pay gap, we will fix the representation gap, and all people will see somebody like them at the top of a business, at the top of our parliament, at the top of all of our structures in life.
Do you think we've still got to get past the feminist label?
Do you reckon? Do you
Well,
think the
I'm
label's
asking
still
you the
out there?
question. I'm asking the question, so I'm hedging it. But I guess anytime you're promoting the position of women in the workplace, there is a
Yeah.
body of men who would say, "Oh, that's the feminist ticket," and they try and dismiss it as some sort of tokenist thing. Is there still any of that
Yeah.
going on? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and I think there are some women that dismiss it. So I think
yeah.
we have to be careful. The feminist label was about
Okay,
rights for all.
sure.
What we fought for first was women, because if you can fix it for
Oh,
women,
yeah,
you can see the knock-on effects through other minority groups.
yeah. Okay.
And also for men. Men benefit from this stuff too, right? I think what we talk about when we say, oh, we're running a special program for women
Right. Yeah.
or any other minority group,
Yeah.
represented group, the label doesn't always help. And I think sometimes the experience of going, oh, well, they've just brought in a female speaker rather than a male speaker. Oh,
Yeah.
they've
Yeah.
recolored it all pink and purple rather than corporate colours. Also, there's a little bit of that's where tokenism, I think, doesn't work. It's like the equivalent of gender washing, isn't it?
Sure.
Greenwashing. I don't think that works, and I don't think that has.
Yeah.
Even if it's got the best intentions, I just don't think it has the impact it could have. I think what we're looking at in the women's leadership development space is much more around what is different as a woman in the workplace. How do I experience life and work? Because
Sure.
nobody does that. Or leave it at the door.
Oh, I can't do that.
Does that? You don't leave work and suddenly go, I can't remember what I was doing half an hour. Of course, no. We go away, we noodle it.
No.
And I think that some of the feminine traits around that, where we are valued for people-pleasing behaviours, where we're valued for martyring type behaviours, for sacrificial behaviours, is very different. We don't value that in men in the workplace so much.
Men don't give up so much.
But the expectation for them to give up isn't there, Andrew.
Nor the willingness. Not saying that women are willing giver-uppers, sacrifices, but yeah, there's
It's
no.
an expectation. It's an expectation, but it's an expectation life has taught us is the case for women. So it's how do we address that? So actually, you can be fully resourced, fully in your healthiest adult self as a woman,
Yeah.
and still be able to give with generosity, not from sacrifice.
Well,
How do you say no without going and getting called not a nice name for being that kind of B-word boss, when actually if a guy went, no, I don't have time for that, it would be perfectly acceptable.
okay, well, between our recordings, and just before this, we never rehearse, isn't it obvious? I actually said to you that as a generalization, I think women make better leaders than men. Now, I wouldn't say that's 83-17. I wouldn't say it's 65-35, but it's
Yeah.
50 something, 40 something. And I'll stand by that at any level. I just think women have got a better, I know we're generalizing, not every woman, not everywhere. Based on 42 years of experience in the workplace, I'm more impressed with women leaders than I am men generally. And that's caveat, caveat, caveat. I wonder why that is.
What's your hunch, Andrew?
What's my hunch? They got a wider range. They're fellow humans in a sense. Why are we distinguishing men from women in a sense? We're all human. We talk about ethnic and racial issues and the basis of, well, color of skin, we're all humans. Well, we're all humans. We're just a bit different physiologically. Why is that different? I can only believe in the time I've reflected on it, which hasn't been sufficient, that it's about the range of potential behaviors and the possession of, I'm not going to use the word soft skills because they're not, the possession of perception, sensitivity, tolerance, restraint, all the things that men generalize, and not so. The trouble is we get into generalizations, don't we?
And I think that's where it becomes very difficult to have this conversation with employers sometimes.
Sure.
Because all of our systems look at, this is what success is. This is the 10 things that leaders do, behave or achieve or
Gotcha.
targets. And what happens is men hit all of those, women hit all of those, and then they also bring all this extra. And it's the extra that I think you're talking about.
Yeah.
That is different to what has always been, that always will be the case for generic. You're right. For the majority of male leaders, the success factors are far smaller. Women have to learn to do all of those, and then we bring all the other stuff that we have innately in ourselves.
Oh, okay.
And I think that's what you're seeing in practice.
Yep. I think you're close. I've not thought about it long and hard enough to come to conclusions of my own. But you're right. When I've seen criteria against performance, they tend to favor male people.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder what a more female-oriented set of performance criteria might look like.
I would love an employer to stick them in.
We ought to do that sometime.
So, we do these, we do these 360 feedbacks, right?
Yeah.
And that was how we developed our leadership. That's not an uncommon thing for employers to do.
Sure.
And when you look at the criteria or what's being asked, they mirror this kind of masculine trait, masculine behavior, success factors that are hard and measurable and And then they ask about, what are they like giving feedback? How do they grow you? How do they develop you much softer? How do they innovate, create, collaborate, build safety? And you can have this brilliant 360 tool, and there are some phenomenal ones, and get really rich evidence for how the person's performing and where they can grow and that their potential for more. But often the two don't relate very well. So you have a system, a performance system, and then you've got all this extra brilliant stuff that please do more of, but it isn't valued and it isn't rewarded. And it might be like, I gave you an extra bonus, or I gave you a, this month Employee of the Month, voucher or something, because you did that great thing that the team came through. And it's that, it's that relational piece. And we talk about people skills. I don't mean that you can handle a great performance conversation, can handle the difficult conversation. Like we talk about in that.
Sure.
What I'm talking about is the people skills to go, I've noticed the demeanor of Andrew is different.
Sure.
Can't put my finger on it, but I've got this hunch. And, we talk about feminine intuition and
sure.
But there is something around, we pick up those vibes kind of thing.
No, and I don't want to diminish the value of the women angle, but I'm also thinking that could be as true for introverts, who are also not favored typically in, for instance, as we're talking about, and frankly, probably other groups. I come into the conclusion some time ago, and this is reaffirming it for me, organizations are typically not very good in a one singular means of doing anything approach to accommodate people with differences.
And I think, that you put it beautifully, Andrew. I think, you know, there are some great examples of that happening in the world. Bill Gates is quite happy to tell you he loves the tech, he loves the innovation and the curiosity, but don't let him run the organization because he
That's
can't.
right. That's not his
And
skill
he
set.
created a team of people that supported him. No, okay, own
Yeah.
business, so a little bit different.
Yeah.
If you look at that in the workplace, the best, highest performing teams, they're like the pick and mix sweets. They've got like a bit of everything. They've got sweet and salty and sour and hard and soft and crunchy and gooey. They have a little bit of everything in there.
Yeah.
And they find structures and systems
They're organic.
that enable everybody.
They're organic.
But you can part engineer that, you know, we're missing something, can I bring it in? There's absolutely
If
that.
you know your team well enough, Sarah.
Absolutely.
And you know, I've worked in such a team, and I thought this is a very special place to be, and I'm probably never going to be in it again. And I think we're all so different, but it works.
Yeah, and that's often the thing we forget, that contrast is often that polarity is often what inspires and creates and energizes the big aha moments, the big
Let's not forget, as we get near to the end of this recording, let's not forget that our focus is on the women aspect. So what's the last abiding strong message you want to put on this recording that says this is where the women angle, the female angle comes into this? What should we be leaving us this with?
This being leadership development, for me, it's around creating safe spaces where they can thrive as their holistic best self. So what do I mean by that? So if I think about some of the workshops I run, not so much the in-person piece, but the virtual piece.
Yeah, sure.
I don't care if you turn up with a small person in tow because it's breastfeeding time. I don't mind if you come in your dressing gown and you talk to, you know, you join from the sofa. And I think women's groups, women-only groups, or people that identify more to the feminine, those spaces can be very safe to be vulnerable, and they can be very safe to experiment with showing up and being seen. Whereas a mixed group, that doesn't happen so much. We are less accepting of difference and of meeting our own needs first. We're very accepting of emotion. If people get angry or shout or get frustrated and cry in an all women's space, you can be very gently but very firmly and supportedly. In a mixed space, that's much harder because the perception of that is different. So
we could go on and on, and we no doubt will. And I'd love to say, we haven't mentioned the words emotional intelligence that get talked about so much but not understood, because that's wrapped around this too. We don't have to go into the how do men deal with emotional issues against women, but I think we're making some pretty clear distinctions here. And I hope we're putting some very clear challenges down to organizations to simply use humans better who are different from one another. Let's end it there. Otherwise, we're just going on and on. It's been good.
Be really good.